Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's getting mid-August, and it's about time to start getting archery equipment, bow hunter equipment together. Thought I'd try to take you along on a quick video on how I fletch my shafts. What has happened is I shoot plastic vanes, and after a while they dry rot. The vanes start dry rotting. Some of this equipment I haven't used in a few years. Been having a hard time finding plastic vanes that for my shafts. I shoot aluminum shafts. I shoot XX75s, or Hoyt Easton XX75 2117. It's a heavy arrow, but it's pretty good all around arrow. I shoot these for target practice, and then I shoot 2117 game getter shafts for hunting. Like I say, I don't hunt, but I do like try to keep my equipment up to date and keep it clean, keep it prepared in case I do have to or do need to go hunting. But you'll notice on these shafts they've dry rotted, and they pretty much just flake and they just rip up. You can see how they're starting to just crumble. And so what I'm going to do, I found some plastic vanes, 5-inch plastic vanes is what I'm going to use, and I'm going to take y'all through how I fletch these shafts, and you know, how I prep the shaft, and then using the jig for fletching jig. So it's going to be a few pauses here and there because I'm not going to show you the weighting, because once I put the adhesive on them, put them in the jig, normally I leave them in the jig for a half an hour before I rotate to put on the other fletch or the other vane. Okay, anyway, I'm going to show you how I clean shaft. Basically all I do is try to peel all this stuff off, all this old stuff off, then I'll get to the next part. Okay, to get the old fletching off, all I do is take an X-Acto knife and just run it up the shaft. And you don't want to cut into the shaft. You just want to go right up underneath the shaft. Okay, then I'll kind of scrape it, real lightly scrape it to get the majority of the glue off or adhesive. There's always going to be a little bit of residual plastic on there. If you don't get all this stuff off, then you ain't going to get a good seal on your next when you fletch next time. Ooh. If you just heard, I dug into it a little bit. You don't want to dig into it if you don't have to. But you got to get all this old adhesive off. That's one of the reasons why you don't never want to put too much on, because then you got so much more to take off. Now, I've never worked with graphite shafts, graphite arrows, so I really don't know if the procedure is the same with graphite as it is with aluminum. I'm still shooting a bow that I bought back in 1983, and I'm comfortable with it, and so that's what I just continue to shoot. It's just that since the type of bow it is, it's getting harder and harder to find aluminum shafts and fletchings. Okay, once you got the majority off, what I do is I take some 1200 grit wet dry sandpaper and I just lightly sand it. And when you're sanding it, you can actually feel, let me see if I'm still in frame, and you'll be able to feel whether or not you still got adhesive on there. And I got a thick bead of adhesive right there that I missed. And you just want to lightly sand it. This is going to also help to help when you put the new vane on or new fletching on. But you want this shaft as clean as possible. If you don't get it clean, what's going to happen is your vane's not going to seal. It's not going to stay on. You want to get it as good of a seal as you possibly can. I can't stress that enough. Yeah. A little bit right there. But I can feel that it's pretty clean now. Oh yeah, it's good and clean. Okay, now I'll show you the next part. Okay, so the next step is to actually start fletching the shafts. But before I do, I wanted to show you this right here. Years ago, I had prepped on making or refletching quite a few shafts. So I bought an extra abundant amount of vanes, and I'm going to show you this. And this is my tackle box for my archery stuff. But as you can see, I got quite a few bags of plastic vanes. Now you're going to see something that reason why sometimes it's not good to actually do a lot of prepping. I'm going to take some of these out of the bag and show you this. Hold on just a second. Now I've got 4 bags. Of course, one bag is cock feathers, but let me show you these. Watch this. This is what sometimes it's not worth it to prep. Watch this. They just break in half. They just crumble. So you can't use them. All that I'd prepped to be able to use the same colors. You can see they just falling apart in my hands. I have tried to use some of these, and because some of them look like they stay good, but they're not good. They just crumble. You can see what they're doing right there. They just crumble. They're so dry rotted. What a waste of money. I hate that. As you can see, I got bags of them. Bags of the same colors. Every one of them. Matter of fact, this bag here is not even open, and they're bad too. You can see them where they're starting to chip down inside there. I think you can see it down in there where they're starting to chip. All I do is barely touch them and they crack. Okay, so anyway, moving on. A little bit of a loss. It's been a while since I opened this bag. I've been wondering where this knife was at. This is a German Army knife. I reckon their take on a Swiss Army knife. I've been wondering where that was at. Okay, so next thing, I'm gonna have to close one of these blinds. I can't tell which one's doing all the shadows. There you go. Okay, this is a Bowen jig. Again, I bought this a long time ago, probably back in the early 80s, I'd imagine. Try to get this where, and it's a one vein Fletcher. They make them where they'll fletch a whole arrow at one time, or a whole shaft at one time. They also make them where you can do three shafts, 6 shafts, or a dozen shafts all at one time, which is pretty quick. But unless you're really a professional or something, or shoot target archery and need, you shoot dozens of arrows. Now in my heyday, I was averaging probably shooting anywhere between 150 to 200 arrows a day just for practice. But kind of got out of that. It's been I know a good 10 years since I shot my bow, and the main reason is because I had such a hard time finding the 5-inch plastic vanes. And I could have changed over, I reckon, and used something different, but this is just what I got my bow set up for. And getting back to the jig. Okay, I shoot left-handed, and this jig is set up so you can shoot, either put a left helical, a center helical, or a right helical. But since I shoot left-handed, I put a slight right hand helical on my vanes whenever I mount them to the shaft. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but it's wrote on there that it's right. And the way I got this part right here set up, I don't know if you can see the gauge or not, but I set it up so I shoot a slightly right hand helical. And what reason why I do that is it kind of takes up for string jerk, release jerk, and kind of helps take up that jerk a little bit. Because either way, if you're left hand or right hand, unless you're perfectly got a perfect release, you're going to jerk just a little bit, and the helical usually helps solve that problem. It takes up the slack on it. Okay, now this right here is also set up. You can either fletch 3-vein fletch or a 4-vein fletch. Okay, most people always shoot three vein fletches. The 4-vein, the only time I've ever really seen many people shoot 4-vein is when they're shooting flu feathers. And I think some of the flu I have do have 4 veins. I have to look. It's been a while since I looked. Okay, but anyway, what I do is this is your cock feather. I don't know if you can see the white marking right there, but that's for your cock feather. I always start off to the left side of my cock feather. Put my first vein on my cock feather. Okay, and you can hear it click. Let me get you back over here. Okay, so what you want to do is you got to clean your veins and clean your shaft before you do the gluing. Okay, and I don't do no more than take an alcohol pad, and I always do my veins first. And basically what you're going to run, there's a small groove that runs down your vein. You just want to clean that off some. Okay. Okay, you're going to let the alcohol dry. Let me set this back. Okay, you notice what I'm doing. I'm shooting 2 red hen and a fluorescent orange cock feather. Okay. And what this different color is for, you know, when you pull it out of a quiver or whatever, you know where the knock point is on your string, and this just kind of helps you align it. You know, all companies in that, you know, it's not really a sighting fletch or a sighting feather. It's just basically for so you know where your cock or your where your knock is on your arrow, so in that way it's easier to put it into your string. A lot of times these knocks have a little bitty tick mark right there that you can feel when it, you know, if it's getting like nighttime or something or dusk. But that's the main reason why they have the separate colors. Now, some people will probably argue with me about that, but that's the only reason why I see. And I reckon if you actually sight it down straight down your shaft through your vein, you might could use it for sighting. I really don't. I really don't see how, but you could, I reckon. So you're also gonna wipe down your shaft. You want to make sure there's no dust, no oil on it. Okay, and like I say, I always start off with my left hand helical, or my left vein. Let me see. And you'll notice your clamp itself, it has markings on it. Now I'm going to put mine where it's in the third. I reckon it would be considered a 1/4 inch from the 1/4 inch from your actual knock. It's actually a little bit more than that. It's probably about 1 inch from my knock, because you got this right here. It's got to go up and mount right here. You'll see. This is all magnetic. This has a big magnet on it right here. The jig itself has a big magnet right here, and this right here slides down onto it, and it clamps it down in place. Now, the next thing, glue or adhesive. I have lock or Fletch-Tite right here, but I can tell you that Fletch-Tite's no good no more. It's dried out also. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use Loctite. And the thing I've already found out about this Loctite, it's hard to get a small bead. So you're gonna have to come back after it all dries up and everything. You're gonna have to clean your shaft up a little bit between your veins, and in case you overfill the vein groove. So let's get to that. I'm gonna set you off to the side here, because then that way I can get a good bead of adhesive on here. Try to get as even as possible. If you don't get an even bead, it doesn't really matter, but you need to make sure that there's a bead, that there's glue all the way down this vein. Too much. That's the bad thing about not staying in practice with stuff, is that you get out of practice of making things and you're like back starting all over again. I used to be able to do this stuff without leaving any kind of overflow or overfill. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to set you're going to put your let me pull this back around. You're going to put your shaft in. You're going to put your shaft in, so in that way you got where your cock feather will go right here. And then you just slide it in right there like that. Hopefully you can see what I've done. Okay. Now, the clamping process. What I do is, I'm going to show you real slow. What I do is I take it and I set my clamp on there, right there. Ooh, almost messed up. Yeah, turn this around. Okay. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to set it right here, if you can see what I'm doing, and then I'm just sliding it down on here until I feel the metal meet the magnet. Okay, once I got that, you see it's wanting to go down in place itself. Then I'm just going to slide it down on there, and you probably can't see it, but I can see how it actually caught. Okay, now using this Loctite, I'm going to leave it in the clamp for a half an hour. And what I'll do is I'll bring y'all back. I'll bring y'all back whenever I get this arrow made. I'm not going to show you each individual fletching. Okay. Talk to you later. Okay, so I just took the arrow out of the jig, and you may or may not be able to notice I have some excess glue right here, and you really need to, if you can, try to get as much of that off as you can. Reason being is because what'll happen is it will kind of throw off your well, to create drag first of all, and if you got too much, it'll kind of create drag on one side. So you want to try to peel that off the best you can, and do that same as when you strip the fletching. Just be real careful and just go real slow, and you can carve that off. Okay, that's all you want to do. Just slice that off. It comes right off. Okay, anyway, I'll get that done. I'm not going to talk too much about my archery equipment or anything. Reason being is because it's most of the stuff I shoot, it's basically my prepper stock. I used to shoot a lot, I used to hunt a lot, but don't do too much of that anymore. Reason why I don't hunt, I think I've mentioned it before in another video. Got so many friends that they like going out hunting, but they won't clean the deer. They like shooting, but they don't like cleaning it, so they bring it to me. A lot of times I'll clean it. So I always have a freezer with deer in it, and also I understand that deer and animals have to be thinned out some, but unless I'm going to eat it, I usually won't kill it, unless it's nuisance. If it's a nuisance animal, yeah, I have no problem killing it if it gets to be a nuisance. Okay, I'm just going to pan around real quick. Let me show you one of these. This is one of my flu. Whoa! This is one of my flu arrows, and you'll notice this has 5 feathers on it. And you'll notice that they are right, or my mistake, left helical on here, and that's because these came pre-made. Like I say, I'm a right-handed shooter, so most of my arrows I have to make myself if I want right helical. And if you're a left-handed shooter, most people will witness that left-hand equipment is hard to find, and so when you do find it, you better grab it when you find it, or you have to make it yourself. You'll notice on these flu feathers, the tips of them have been filed off. Reason being is because flu arrows are used for shooting birds in flight, or on limbs, or squirrels, or stuff up in trees. It goes out real quick, but it slows down real fast. In other words, it won't go the same distance as a regular hunting arrow. Field point or broadhead. These are the broadheads I use, which are, let me see if I can get it. Yeah, these are satellites. Now, with my field points, I use 75 grain, and these are 65 grain. Reason being is because these fly a lot faster. Plus, if you're in a tree stand, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it works. It works out using the difference in the grain. And for most of you, if you don't know anything about archery, every time one thing changes, like your arrow weights or your vein size or your knot point or anything, you got to go through and retune your whole bow basically. So I try to stick to everything basically the same, so that way I don't have to do a lot of fine tuning, or that's all I do have to do is fine tuning. I don't have to do no major tuning. But I'm not going to go over any more of my archery equipment, and reason being because, like I say, mine's pretty much ancient. And on YouTube you can find all kinds of channels talking about archery equipment, taking care of it or using it, bow hunting, just shooting in general. But right off the top of my head, three people that archery hunts and stuff that I can think of is Buck Run 111. He's great with shooting aerial targets. And let's see, Whitetail Bushcraft. He does a lot of bow hunting. And let me see, Mitch from Native Survival. He shoots primitive archery, which is good. One of these days, I'd love to shoot to make my own bow. And most of us, I started off real young shooting a bow, with a stick bow, then moved up to like a Bear 25 pound. Then from there I went to a Ben Pearson 45, and I shot the Ben Pearson until I was about 19, and then I went and bought my first recurve, or compound, not recurve, but my first compound bow, and I enjoy shooting it. So I'm not going to change anything. And there's all kind of publications out there. Most of my publications are out of date because it goes with the compound that I shoot. You got a book, here by Larry Wise. This mainly talks about equipment and some of the tuning and how to actually just basic archery stuff. And you got Archery Digest. This is old version, but I'm sure they got a newer edition. And Bow Hunting Deer. I'm sure this is they got a newer version than this. Okay, but anyway, that's all I'm going to cover in this, and I hope y'all had a good weekend. Hopefully it'll cool down pretty soon. And once I get all my arrows done, you'll notice I've got a whole bunch more arrows I have to do. All these I'm going to have to strip and refletch. My bow hunting arrows, or my actual hunting arrows, I have to refletch them. And anyway, if you do hunt, good luck to you. And like I say, y'all have a great week. Hopefully you won't have to work too hard this week. Y'all take care. Bye.